Welcome back to a screenwriter's journey. It's day 33, and I'm going to take a minute up front because the last commentary I recorded, it was at least a week ago. I have been, it's in interesting times, which you'll find out if you keep watching and listening to the days and the days and the days, and believe me, the days that lie ahead. There's some pretty dark times in my writing and rewriting, but I'm not going to go into that now. Anyways, yesterday on day 32, when I look back, I saw that I had finished a very rough draft of the script. How rough? That's probably more for you to determine than myself, because, of course, when you write something, you always think it's at least fairly good. When you read something, you often think it stinks. Anyways, I'm going to see where I start today, and we'll take it from there. Let's dig in. All right, so we open today back on page 89, and I'm just going to see what I'm doing here. Again, this was 2 months plus since I've written this, that I'm looking at this. So they're talking about Gary pretending or dressing up like Larry for the sake of fooling the bad guys. And so now they're back in the trunk, and we've got the bulletproof stuff. And I'm obviously adjusting this. We're talking about the rifles that he's got back there. Who's going to take them? Who's going to use them? And oh, I didn't see the date. Oh, there it is. It's June 1st. Today is August 14th. Holy mackerel! I'm really behind. So Abby is getting a quick lesson from Holly. I think I'm adjusting the just a little bit of dialogue here. I wanted to, that when she says, "Are you okay?" ask me again when basically the others are safe. Because obviously, there's okay and then there's truly okay, and she's definitely at least not one of those okays. So we're back. Again, I'm just adjusting a bunch of dialogue. They're back at the airport in the hangar office thing, and Clyde and Ace, well, in this case Clyde, because I believe Ace is outside, is still a little bit paranoid that somehow Rachel is trying to double cross him. And Lexi is learning based on Rachel's answers to Clyde that Rachel has not been telling the truth to Lexi about who is she working with, at what point she was in contact with Salerno, et cetera, et cetera. So this is page 92 out of 110 pages, basically. And as I look back on this and reflect, I don't know that this is the purpose of my commentary, as opposed to sort of getting inside my head while I was writing it, but it's quite a bit of dialogue, and that is something I think I'm universally seeing as I go back through this script, is maybe more action and less talking is needed. In fact, I had the thought the other day, like the movie A Quiet Place or The Quiet Place, that would have been super interesting to read that script with as little dialogue as they had. And obviously there's others that have very little dialogue. I've never written a script. I've had passages, of course, that are 3 or 4 pages of action or something going on, but big, long stretches. But on the other hand, not that this is why I don't make them like that, but I can't imagine reading a spec script, especially that is just solid action. It just seems to me it would be hard to read, even if you broke it up into bite-sized chunks of 1 and 2 and 3 lines of action and description. It just seems like, wow, that would be tough. All right. But my point was that I do think that this feels like a lot of dialogue for late in a script. Uh, Obviously, that depends what kind of script, what kind of genre, etc. Um, and I don't think at its heart this is not really an action shoot 'em up movie. I don't know. I hate to say, how would I classify this? It's not. It's not really a thriller. It's a damsel in distress. It's kind of not really a buddy story. It's kind of a one woman's journey, sort of making decisions. That's a great question, Jack. I haven't even, I must admit, thought of a log line for this. I do not like log lines. I mean, I don't like to come up with them. Oops, had my microphone muted. I feel like today is a day of regression and reflection as opposed to commenting on the script, which all of you, thousands, if not tens, of watchers and dedicated viewers may find totally unexciting. It would be super interesting to look into the demographics of who is watching this. I encourage, of course, everyone to leave comments, and I don't know about thumbs up and down. That may be a little depressing, but it would really be cool if there were some new script writers, people who don't even write scripts, to wondering kind of what is the screenwriter's journey. What a great name for a series. Because I think anyone who's written a lot, maybe if you're watching this, how you work is totally different than me, especially if you're successful. Because as I said at the beginning of this, in my present day, which is 2.5 months into the future of when I'm writing this, I'm just really going through some tough times. And I think it all goes back to the lack of outlining and treatment. Although I did a pretty good outline, I don't know. But that is a spoiler alert. So we're back at the airport, the small airport we changed it to from a bigger one. And so I'm just trying to work through, as always, the logic of the story, what makes sense, trying to make sure that the people in the story do stuff that makes sense and just isn't stupid movie stuff. So I'm jumping around here a little bit. I'm just trying to see what I'm doing. Holly, obviously, her plan all along for the last many, many pages is to use Gary as sort of a decoy just to kind of freak out the people, which you already know if you've watched the previous days because you've already read the scenes. But so again, there's just a lot of tweaking the dialogue, changing stuff here. And the question is always how serious, how melancholy, how playful, how, glib, because there are certain movies that are just glib line after glib line. I'm thinking of like the Lethal Weapon and the Shane Black kind of movies, and a lot of other movies that just toss off lines. And I don't know that it's easy to write glib dialogue, but it's very simple in that sometimes a line will just come to you and boom, you put it down and you go, oh, that's a good glib line. And it seems like it. And then if you read your script 10 times and you still like it and it's still in the character and blah, 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 then it's good. But oftentimes I think the glib toss off throwaway lines, you can really rely on those too much, and then it doesn't get you beneath the character's skin, and it just becomes what it is, a throwaway line that you like see in the trailer or something. And I guess they have their purpose, but I think the first time through, I at least am more likely to write those kind of lines, and I don't know that I'm thinking they're placeholders. I might be thinking I'm really clever, but then as you go back through later on, oftentimes you're like, maybe not so much. So I would say, and maybe I just turned up my volume a little, but I would say more often than not, when I go through the second time and the third time and the 10th time, I'm more often than not trying to get rid of the glib lines, trying to, I think in general, cut down on the dialogue. That was another thought I had. I mentioned a few minutes ago that whenever someone doesn't absolutely have to talk, just don't have them talk. That's my mantra, at least until I change it again. All right, so again, this is just all tweaking stuff, changing stuff of Gary who's dressed up like Larry. And so I was trying to think what, as you always should, what's the most dramatic, what's the most exciting, while being relatively movie realistic, shall we say, way to get this across. And then I was also thinking, because I brought up earlier in the story, kind of in a mostly joking way, about twins ESP, which I don't know that it's ever been proven or disproven, but having twins, my wife and I, they do kind of sometimes get on the same mind meld, not quite same wavelength. So I'm playing a little bit with, does Larry somehow know, not specifically what Gary's going to do, but can, and I don't want to say sense his presence, but does he have, I don't know, some sense that Gary is there, and is that the reason he really goes to the bathroom, or is it purely a coincidence? Of course, coincidence in scripts is generally a bad thing, at least in good movies. But having said that, of course, it's amazing how often coincidence comes into play in even the best movies. If you think about it, I mean, you could literally say everything that happens is a coincidence, even if it's well motivated. But I think obviously you can get away with stuff if you've, foreshadowing and setting it up and all that kind of stuff. In fact, I'm thinking of one day writing a movie called Coincidence, because coincidence can mean two different things. But again, I'm going on a tangent. So, yeah, back to playing with the idea of the twins. Do they have some sort of not psychic, but connection? And again, how, bad guys, it's easy to put glib things, your soon-to-be ex-boyfriend. But, that, I don't know, it kind of works. Because it does, it answers the question, but it does it in maybe kind of an interesting way. Again, anytime you can write dialogue that you haven't heard before, which of course is probably impossible because every line of dialogue has probably been spoken. Okay. I should be paying more attention so I can provide more insight into what's going on here. So again, I mean, even, he says, let me know if you need any help. Sorry, he's all mine. That's easy dialogue. It's kind of lazy, sloppy dialogue. Having said that, it's still in my current draft for all I know, maybe not. So he gets shot instead. I did, and I mentioned this before, and I know I'm thinking as I'm writing this, going through it, is, do I want, in particular, Ace and Clyde to die? Do I want them to be mortally wounded? Do I just want them sort of out of the picture? And then later, as the other people come, including Hogan, and even Holly, does she get shot? Does she get injured? Do any of the kids get shot and injured? I just saw myself writing something about twins ESP when it is revealed that Gary really is there. Oh, twins ESP, kind of a real thing. So maybe, I think the idea, yeah, he said I was wrong. And I think the idea is that, they've heard about it, certainly, the two boys, but they've never really put much stock in it. But maybe he's finding out now that, wow, there is something to that, maybe. Oh, his kneecap exploded, I just read. That's not good. The jet. Man, I am jumping all over the place here. I'm trying to figure out when the jet comes in, at what point do they see it, and aka when does the jet see them? Is Salerno in there, or the bodyguard just staring out the window? Is the pilot reporting what's going on? Or do they just come in? I mean, it's not like there's been a bunch of gunfire that they would have seen. But, and I don't know if, not that I'm going to, spoiler alert, change when Ace comes in and drives the truck or the car, whatever, down the street. I think part of the reason I did it before is so that if someone came, they wouldn't know anyone was there. But the flip side of that is that when Salerno comes, if he doesn't see a car there, he's going to be like, what the heck? And maybe tell the guy to circle or do a touch and go or something. So, yeah, so that may change. Okay, so Hogan is looking for the kids. I'm just reading along here to see what I'm changing. I took out a little dialogue, so good for me. I'm kind of deciding. I think here, obviously, Larry isn't really a part of this deal. There's no compelling reason he has to go, unless they're afraid that he's going to somehow squeal on someone or slip away and do it. I don't know that Rachel is super nervous or worried about that compared to the bad guys. To Rachel, Larry is just sort of a pain in the butt and a kind of a wisecracking person. But on the other hand, she does think that he is Lexi's boyfriend. All right, so the bodyguard. I don't know if I'm going to give him a name. I think bodyguard works for that. Oh my gosh, have you all seen the Bodyguard, that British series that was on that limited series that was on a few years ago, like 8 episodes or 6? Wow, that was crazy good. Okay, so Salerno, I'm just again tweaking stuff, improving the dialogue. Once you've got the story, and you're fixed and you're happy and you say, yep, this is how I want it to end, then it's all about obviously working on the dialogue and revealing character and moving the story along, raising the stakes, ticking clock, good news, bad news, all that kind of thing. But sometimes changes in the story come when you're writing, again, because of what the characters do to the story. Sometimes you make a conscious decision that, wow, that's just not working. I don't like the ending. It seems fakey. It seems forced, whatever. And then when you go back, the dialogue certainly isn't just going to be tweaked because you can't get to the same place, with this, or you can't get to a different place with the same dialogue, really. Okay, so Salerno, first and foremost, he wants Lexi safe because he knows, or he's convinced, what if she really isn't his granddaughter? Let's just say she is. And more than anything else, he wants her safe because she is his, bloodline, blah, blah, blah. Rachel, he doesn't, I'm not going to say he doesn't care if Rachel dies, but it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if she did. But he's definitely taking care to make sure Lexi is okay. Oh, there goes day 33 is in the can. I'm not going to drag this on any longer. I'll just say see you again for day 34 on a screenwriter's journey.